We spend so much of our time trying to be understood by other people. We spend our entire lives sometimes trying to choose the path that others will understand. Sometimes we spend decades in trying to be the version of ourselves that somebody else would accept. But how would it feel if one day we woke up and realized that we were never being watched, we were never being seen, we were never being acknowledged for all that we were giving? What if one day we wake up and realize that every time we decided to put ourselves second and somebody else first, the person that we did it for, or the relationships that we did it for, or the systems that we did it for, or the organizations that we did it for, they were also putting themselves first. So, who was putting you first? Who was putting you first? Who was putting me first? If I was out there sacrificing myself for somebody else, some organization, some system, something, some belief that I had to be there for other people, belief that I had to take care of everyone and not expect anybody to take care of me. If that was the belief that was working, then what about me? Let's say you do have that realization one day, which you will. It's in your control when you have it, whether you have it sooner or later. That is in your control because you can start to see things more clearly right now. You can start to wake up right now. You can start to see things for what they are right now. Or if there's some lesson pending, or if there's something that you have not understood yet, or if there's something that you still need to explore, need to go deeper within, then maybe it'll take some time, but you will get there. You will get to a stage where you will realize that all the sacrifices that you made were not even seen as sacrifices by somebody else. That while you were putting everybody else first, while you were giving them your blood, sweat, and tears, somebody else was happy to accept it but had no plans to give it back to you. I know I'm not laughing at you, obviously, but people, they say, people, they talk about, oh, on your deathbed, you realize this, on your deathbed, you realize that. But most of the world keeps waiting for that deathbed moment to occur before they, you know, start to wake up on their own. And I think anytime not having understood that is time wasted. There is nothing that will hurt you more than wasted time, than wasted life. It never nothing hurts you more than the waste of your life. No loss of wealth, no loss of money, no loss of relationships, nothing. It's just one thing, and that is your life. When you realize you were working yourself into the ground for somebody else, for people that weren't really there for you and were not planning to be there for you either. But you were there for them because that's who you are. You've always been there for other people. That is what you are known for or known as. What are you known for? For being used, for being pliable, malleable, for being somebody who is easy to manipulate. Is that your identity? Sometimes it is. Sometimes that's how people perceive us. We're trying to be kind, we are trying to be giving, we're trying to be loyal, we're trying to be a lot of things for one person, one place. And we are trying to hold things together that will never hold us back. And any time wasted doing that is a waste of our life. It's not expected out of us. whatever is higher than us, whether it be our higher selves, our guides, our the divine, the anything that is more powerful than us does not expect that from us. We are expected to be a support, be a positive influence, but be a positive influence in showing the world how to live, not living for somebody else. I remember this time when I was working on a project of my own. I was working on building something from the ground up, and that involved having a team and that involved working with people. And since I am the kind of person, who likes to observe things and see things and see where, somebody needs support and somebody could use a little help or some extra support, I would often predict that this is what is going to be needed, and I would offer the support before it was even required from the other person by the other person. And one day I just heard somebody else say that don't take away somebody else's struggles because those are their lessons that they need to learn. And that was true for me because nobody else took away my struggles, and that made me the person I am today. And I'm happy with the person I am today, which is a big deal that I'm saying that right now because, and I'm happy I'm saying it earlier rather than deathbed. So while time was wasted, time was also saved, right? So that is the one thing I learned. Do not take away somebody else's struggles. Do not even try to attempt that because while you might be thinking you're being supportive and you're being kind and you're being giving and nurturing, at the same time, you're kind of being selfish because not wanting to be selfish. But the actions can come from a place of selfishness or wanting to be needed. When you take away somebody else's struggles, when you take away their own pain, yes, a lot of times, most amount of times, it comes from a place of wanting to help others, but it also comes from place of wanting to be needed, wanting to be a fixer, wanting to be seen as a person who takes care. And and right now the example that's coming to my mind is of a parent. When the parent does everything for a child, they'll help them tie their shoes, they'll help them wear their clothes, they'll run after them and feed them food. Most often, we would think of ourselves as being good, important nourishers. But what is actually happening is that we are taking away their own ability or taking away their own independence. Now they will learn to eat on their own later in life. Now they will learn to tie their shoes later on in life. And while we think that we are supporting, while we think that we are being giving and kind because we're taking away from our lives to pour into theirs, because the time that we took all that we gave them in order to help them, that was the time we could have spent on ourselves, right? So from our perspective, we think that maybe we were helping somebody else and we were enabling them to be better. But now the child could be stuck in a situation where he's required to eat on his own or her own, or they are required to, tie their own shoes, or they're required to change their own clothes, and now they are struggling. Let's say they spilled something on themselves, and somebody else kind of expects them to know how to change their own clothes, but they don't because for you, they're a baby, and you need to do things for them. So they never really learned on their own. And every time they struggled, you pitched in. You decided to take over. You decided to not let them suffer. Every time they screamed and shouted and said that it's too hard, they can't figure it out, you took over their struggles. And soon you became so important in their lives that they couldn't function without you. Soon this child will be 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. They might know how to tie their own shoes or eat their own food, but the decision making would still be connected to you. It would be delegated to you. And you might feel you've done a great job because the child still needs you, but that's the exact opposite of what you were required to do. And if you really care about the world, and if you really care about everyone around you, and if you really want people to do well and be the best possible version of themselves, you need to bless them with their own struggles, not add to it. Not that, oh no, you will learn so much. So that's why I was being such a pain in the butt for you. Not that, not exactly that, no. But, I think this is a good perspective. I never really thought about that. Maybe that can be done. Not in that way. Not that we add to somebody else's struggles. And there's another thing that used to go on in my mind. I used to think all these people that, took advantage of me and took, advantage of all the things that I offered to them. They kind of assumed that this was a given and they kind of kept on using it. And I would think that these people did lead me to my growth. So what does that mean now? Do these people get off scot free even when they used me? Even when I suffered, even when I cried and they refused to look at me in my pain? What happens to them? So this is the second part, I guess. And the answer would come to me. The answer would come that these people do not get off scot free, not because they need to be punished, not because, you know, revenge, not because of that, but because they offered. Even if this life was meant to teach you a lesson and you were meant to learn things, and these people became your teachers in a way by even mistreating you. They became your teachers because you needed to grow, because you needed to become more, to become bigger, to become more evolved. So if that happened for you, these people still volunteered for those positions, didn't they? These people still offered cruelty. They offered that cruelty would come from them. So if they did do that, then the consequences of that choice will go to them. So it's never really about, getting somebody, you know, getting even. It's never about getting even because life evens out things on its own. Life balances out things on its own. So if time has gone, if you feel that, but I've been doing that for such a long time, how can I change now? I've been living according to other people for a long time now. So how like this will come as such a shock to us to others. Baby steps, I guess. Choosing yourself little by little, or even if you don't, if you feel comfortable, then just looking into yourself and understanding where am I bending for others, because you bending is not really required from you. By bending, I do not mean not being flexible, not, causing problems. No, not that. By bending, I mean that you breaking yourself to fit in places that were not really yours. By bending, I mean that you losing your self esteem for the sake of others, you losing yourself for the sake of others, you losing your own worth because of others, because that tends to happen, doesn't it? We tend to get into situations where we do so much for others and not much comes back. And when it doesn't come back, we start to think maybe it didn't come back because we didn't deserve it. That's not true, though. That's not true. I would often find myself in situations where, I would think I'm not asking for a lot. then why am I so unhappy? I'm not asking for a lot. Like it's very basic things that I'm asking for, and yet they're not coming to me. Not asking for a lot, but it's not coming. And I'm not asking for a lot, but I'm unhappy. And then it made sense to me. The reason I'm unhappy is because I'm not asking for a lot. If you had asked for what you deserved, you might have gotten it. But since you made yourself small, you made yourself broken, and you said, okay, I'm okay with less. You were given less. Why? Because you asked for it. Why? Because you have free will. Because nobody will take away your right to choose. If you think you are existing in a world where things are being decided for you, that's not true. Your own journey, your own life on this planet has been mapped out by you, exactly by you, by nobody else. You being helped, being supported, you being guided by powers who are greater than you, but it is always for your better. But the life that you have, and the life that I have, and the life that we have has been chosen by us. So, while that is deeply upsetting, it is also such a gift because if the life that we have has been chosen by us, then we can change it. We can choose to not go further with what we have and decide to change it and decide that we deserve better. Why? Because we do. If there is even a small part of you that feels that you deserve better, then you do. If you don't, then you don't. I used to always think that, if somebody comes and tells me you deserve the life that you have, would it make me feel happy or would it make me feel sad? If somebody just comes to you and says, you deserve the life that you have. And if that is the case, if it makes you sad, then whose permission are we waiting for to change it? Even if it's big changes that we are, you know, seeing that we need to make, it's still our life, isn't it? Nobody will help us. And it all starts to go down the drain. Who will help us? Nobody. Nobody. And if nobody will help us, how can they decide for us? Yes, the decisions might look like selfishness to people who have benefited from us not choosing ourselves. It might look like selfishness to people who kind of were relying on you to hold things together while they did nothing at all. But good for them. Let it look like selfishness. Maybe that is their karma getting back to them. Let it look like selfishness. You have a right to be selfish. You were required to be selfish. You were required to be selfish because if you were running on empty, then you can't take care of the world also. Nobody required you to run on empty. We decided that